Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting of May 20th, 2019. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Buss?
Present.
Commissioner Cohan? Commissioner Lanson? Absent. Commissioner Newman?
Present.
Chair McMahon?
Present. Okay. Item number 4, are there any written comments, announcements, or continuances at this time?
Thank you, Chair. There is a supplemental packet that came out late this afternoon. It's in reference to public hearing item 7A. It is minor revisions related to conditions of approval, as well as clarification of one of the statements of facts in the staff report related to parking. Steve Kearns, our planning manager, will walk us through that once he gets to the presentation.
Thank you. Public comments. We do not have any public comments at this time. And so we can move on to the consent calendar. It is the minutes of April 1st, 2019. Do we have any comments or a motion to approve, Commissioner?
Thank you, Chair. I move we adopt the consent calendar for the Planning Commission meeting of April 1st, 2019.
Are we going to do a hand vote or a hand vote? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please. Or do you say that, or do I say that?
Roll call.
Mm-hmm.
Roll call.
Commissioner Buss? Commissioner Cohan?
Abstain.
Abstain. Commissioner Newman?
Aye.
Chair McMahon?
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes 3-0. Commissioner Lanson absent. Commissioner Newman abstained.
No.
Thank you.
Cohan abstained.
Thank you. Okay, item number 7, public hearing. Will the clerk please open the public hearing?
Should I open it? Okay. Hearing having been advertised as required by law is hereby open to consider agenda item 7A. Case number SUMN 2019-70266 OTP 2019-70264 LTP 2019-70326 to allow parking lot renovations, including elimination of a portion of a landscape planter, removal of parking spaces, and removal of 7 oak and 4 California sycamore trees at the Transportation Center to accommodate new bus passenger loading and unloading areas and new pedestrian walkways. The project does not involve expansion of the Transportation Center site located at 265 South Rancho Road, and the applicant is the City of Thousand Oaks.
Thank you. Are you ready? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. With that, Steve Kearns walk us through this particular item. He'll also clarify the changes that relates to the supplemental packet that you had this evening. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Kearns.
Great, thank you and good evening, Chair McMahon, members of the Planning Commission. As mentioned, there are 3 applications before you this evening, all impacting the transportation site at 265 South Rancho Road. There's a special use permit modification to make site improvements, including parking area and bus transit improvements, an oak tree permit to address certain oak tree impacts, and a landmark tree permit to address impacts to California sycamore trees. The request is to allow site improvements at the transit center. These are to accommodate safety enhancements and improve functionality of the site for the transit-dependent public. The improvements include installation of a new bus passenger loading and unloading platform, as well as bus shelters. Establish a new bus staging area, a new ADA accessible sidewalk transitioning from Rancho Road and Holland Drive into the lower parking area and up to the bus transit area. new stairs from lower parking area up to the bus transit areas, as well as the removal of 6 oak and 2 California sycamore trees, certain pruning and encroachments. I want to note at this time that the number of removals of the oak trees has changed from the previous iteration of the staff report. There were certain revisions evaluated and incorporated into the design, which retains two of the California sycamore trees and one of the coast live oak trees that was slated for removal. This is the general vicinity of the transportation facility. It's shown on the red star. As you can see, it's bound by the 101 freeway to the north. To the east and southeast is Rancho Road. Not shown is Holland Drive, which bisects the site going through here. Here's an aerial photo of the site. The area delineated in the blue outline is the actual transportation facility. The red outline is the entire property. It's actually open space to the south side of Holland Drive and public lands on the north side. Shown here at the bottom of the image is Rancho Road, Holland Drive, bisecting the property, as well as a 101 freeway to the north. As a bit of background, the city acquired the land, the entire property that was shown in the red outline in 1999. The transportation center was expanded from the park and ride to the actual transportation center in 2001, and that included the addition of parking, the bus transit operation, as well as the planting of landscaping, including the landscaping we're considering here tonight. In 2005, the city approved the transportation building, as well as the amenities. And in 2012, the upper parking area was expanded to include an additional 70 parking spaces. And in March and April of 2019, the subject applications were submitted. Again, this is an aerial perspective of the site. The area shown in the green clouded area is the area of the bus transit improvements. The red outline is the modified reduced planter size. The purple delineation is the new ADA accessible sidewalk from Rancho Road into the site. And on the next slide, I'll show you additional improvements. This image depicts the actual improvement areas. To the bottom of the image is actual Rancho Road. The Rancho Road ingress, one-way ingress, is shown here. The yellow area shown on the left side of Rancho Road ingress is actually the new sidewalk area. So it's an ADA accessible sidewalk going into the site, meandering around Rancho Road and into the lower parking area. The blue area with black hashes are new crosswalks, which do not exist now. They cross the ingress into the lower parking area, and a new sidewalk off of Holland Drive into the site. Also shown is the reduced plant area, the new ADA accessible path going up into the bus transit location, a new stair access. The area in the middle of the drive aisle is the new bus platform for loading and unloading, as well as staging of buses. And the bus transit building is shown in the upper left image. These next few images will show the areas that we were just discussing on the plan. This is the bus transit loading and unloading area. This is a one-way circulation. It feeds out onto Holland Drive. As you can see on the left side of the image are the bus shelters, the bus parking areas. There's 3 of them here on the left side, as well as a sort of a staging area for bus parking now. To about the center where the concrete changes to the asphalt, that is about where the new bus island will be. This is a close-up image of the bus shelters that exist now. The new bus staging area will duplicate this configuration on the other side of the new bus island. Here's the east side of that drive aisle. This is the area that would be affected by the expansion of the roadway to accommodate the new drive aisles. And to about here at the top of the slope is about where you'll see the expansion into this hillside. And this will require changing the gradient of this hillside to a 2-to-1 slope down to the lower parking area. This shows an area where the expansion will occur and elimination of these 6 parking stalls shown to the front of the image. The new landscape plant area will extend to about the end of the parking lot striping. Additionally, they will continue down through these 6 parking stalls and into this one parallel space where this bus is located now. This is an image of the existing sidewalk. Rancho Road is shown in the background here. This is the ingress where the buses cycle into the site up to the bus transit area. There will be a connection to this portion of the sidewalk up into the site. The sidewalk will continue to meander just to the left side of the drive aisle, up through the site, returning into the lower parking area. And again, just to recap those improvements, currently the pedestrian access to the site is through a sidewalk area that extends along the perimeter of the site, right here along Rancho Road at the bottom, connecting up through Holland Drive and terminates where the yellow line begins. There's currently no crosswalk areas for pedestrian crossing up into the site through here to the Transit Center building. These will all be new additions, as well as no sidewalk now going up through the ingress area off Rancho Road. The only access is pedestrians use the existing drive aisle and or walk through the landscape planter areas. This item's before the Planning Commission tonight because the request involves removal of more than 3 protected trees. And as I mentioned, since the Planning Commission staff report was released, there have been some revisions to the plans, which would involve installation of 3 new landscape walls near 3 of the trees that were originally identified for removal. And those walls are designed to preserve these trees in place. There will be a change to the ADA accessible path of travel, the alignment through that plant area to accommodate the new walls and new improvements within the slope, as well as some slope gradient modifications to make the paths ADA compliant. This image here depicts the site improvements with the site revisions. The yellow outline shows the existing planter area. The blue outline is the revised planter area, the reduced planter area. Within that planter area is essentially where the revisions are occurring. The 3 trees, the 3 circles shown in green, are trees now being retained that were originally identified for removal. Tree number 23 is a California sycamore. It's 13 inches in diameter. Tree number 27 is a 7.5-inch diameter Coast Live Oak. And tree number 31 is a 15.5-inch California sycamore. These new walls shown in these areas here in the red outline, these are the approximate location of the new landscape walls. Also, in order to accommodate these changes, this ADA compliant path of travel will have to be relocated and revised in its configuration. So this is tree number 23. This is the California sycamore tree. This tree will now be saved by installing a landscape wall in this general area. Tree number 27 is the Coast Live Oak. This tree will also be retained with the installation of a landscape wall in this general area. And tree number 31 is another California sycamore tree, and it will also remain in place by installation of a landscape wall in this area. So to summarize the revised impacts to the oak and landmark trees, before there were 7 oak trees and 4 California sycamore trees identified for removal. There are now 6 oak trees and 2 California sycamore trees for removal. Before there was 8 oak trees being encroached upon due to the landscape wall. There'll be 9 oak trees encroached upon, and there'll be 9 oak trees pruned for clearance pruning above sidewalks and away from drive aisles. Now, the reason for these removals are these trees are located within the excavation and backfill area for the site improvements going through that landscape area, and that's to create that transition and the ADA compliant path of travels. Transplanting was looked at. We evaluated each tree to see if they could be relocated, but due to the size of some of the trees, the location of trees, the sloping terrain, and the amount of root loss resulting from the boxing process, it was not a viable option. The Thousand Oaks Municipal Code, it requires mitigation for removal of healthy protected trees. The city policy is to provide 3 replacement trees for each protected tree removed. Generally, that's 2 24-inch box trees and 1 36-inch box tree. In this case, the city will provide 4 replacement trees, all of them at 24-inch boxes. The reason for the 24-inch box trees is to accommodate the excavation area needed for limited-sized medians and parkways to accommodate these trees. As a result of retaining 1 additional oak tree, the mitigation is now 24 instead of 28. And now that we're retaining 2 additional oak trees, the mitigation is now 8 instead of 16, or sycamore trees. It's 8 instead of 16 California sycamore trees. This project has been reviewed in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act provisions, as it's been found to be categorical exempt as a Class 1 and Class 4 categorical exemption, since it's consistent with the general plan designation. There is no expansion of the facilities, nor is there any expansion of the existing uses. The trees being removed are not scenic trees and were planted as part of the original site landscaping. And the trees will be mitigated in accordance with the Thousand Oaks Municipal Code requirements. So in conclusions, the proposed site improvements improve the functionality of the site. It will not expand the capacity or use. The improvements are all within the existing improvement areas, so there's no expansion of the transportation site facility. The newer platforms, sidewalks, the crosswalk areas, the stairs, the bus staging area, and the bus loading and unloading areas all enhance the safety and operational function for the transit-dependent public. And there will be 24 oak and 8 California sycamore trees provided as replacement for public benefit. This will offset the loss of the 8 trees, netting in 24 additional trees to our urban forest. Therefore, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve SUMN 2019-70266, OTP 70264, and LTP 2019-70326, subject to the findings in the report and subject to the conditions attached in the report and as amended in the supplemental packet. This concludes staff's introduction, and staff is available for questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of staff? No.
Thank you, Mr. Kearns and staff. Appreciate your due diligence and review of this project. I had a question regarding the landscape requirements. By reducing the landscaping area, are we still meeting the on-site requirements for landscaping for the project site?
The reduction of that plan area is about 40% of that existing plan area, but the overall site is required to have 10% of the site, so the coverage is there.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner?
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Mr. Kearns and staff, for your report. What is the estimated time to complete this project? From groundbreaking to completion?
Good evening, Commissioners. This is Nader from the Public Works Department, Nader Hidari. Because this is an active facility with a desire to minimize the impact, it would be a little bit longer than it normally would be if we were at a bare site that we were doing these level of improvements. However, the improvements, since they touch various areas of the site and they're fairly significant, we're looking at a roughly 9-month duration, 6 to 9 month duration.
I see. One of the conditions, and I believe this is boilerplate, has to do with interfering with birds that are on site, and if there's a certain window, I believe, from February through the end of August, that any work done within that window would require a study or some additional mitigation. Is it anticipated? My question is will the work fall within that window if the plan is approved?
Yeah, I believe you're correct regarding those general month durations, but the schedule we have, which would be starting construction, later this year, would involve the demolition phase being done during the late fall, during the open season, in terms of any bird nesting. Yeah.
I'm sorry, the work would occur before August 31st or afterward?
The demolition work would occur after August 31st, so it would be outside of the
outside
window.
the window.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And then another Public Works question. The staff report mentions that there would be some grading that would be done to put the new bus bays in place. Do we have an estimate of how much cut and fill is involved for the project?
Yeah, it's not a large amount. At a maximum of 2 feet, we're looking at. So we're not
2 feet.
Yes.
So less than one truck trip.
No, I mean in terms of a vertical change, we're talking about a 2 foot of fill.
Okay.
To create the new slope that drops off the edge of the new edge of pavement.
Mm-hmm.
So total volume, we're looking at about 600 yards
Okay, so
net.
something like 40,
Yes.
40 truck
Right.
trips, ballpark.
Yeah. But we have, being conveniently located next to the freeway cuts down on the amount of traffic we have
Absolutely, yeah.
to be sending through town.
Okay, great. The staff report, thank you for that. The staff report mentions that the parking spaces are adequate for code compliance. Going beyond that, is the amount of parking that at the transportation center adequate for, one, for current usage, and two, for projected demand, especially after these new buses come online?
Commissioner Mike Hauser, analyst in charge of the transit program. Yes, we currently have a little over 300 parking spaces at that facility. We're currently running about 80% of capacity on our busiest days. And the parking spaces that we're proposing to remove equate to, I think, about 3 or 4% of the existing parking, so well within our capacity. We expanded the parking lot several years ago in anticipation of future demand, and I would say, barring a substantial change in demand, we're probably future-proof for at least the next 10 years.
Very good, thank you. Just for clarification, attachments 2 and 3 showing the applicant property show a different property line than was given in the staff report this evening. I just want to be clear, does the city's land boundary extend all the way out to Rancho Road? Because it shows a sliver of land at Rancho that is not part of the application.
Yeah, that was a minor mapping error due to there's 2 lots there, and it followed the lot, the westerly lot. The extent of the property does go to the Rancho Road, the extent of the right-of-way of Rancho Road. So
Okay.
it's as shown on this exhibit
So
here.
the whole thing is city land?
The whole thing is, yes.
Okay, great. And then the final comment, this is really just a wording nit, just a small suggested change. In the, it's not an SUP, it's an SUMN. Condition 40, which I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but it refers to the applicant as businesses. And I would recommend for this application and for future use that we replace the word businesses with the word applicant, because applicants can be organizations that are not businesses.
We'll make that change.
Great, thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any other questions? Commissioner?
Thank you very much for that report. It was very concise. I just had a couple of questions about the logistics of this. So we're doubling the number of passenger loading positions for the buses, but we're saying that we're not changing the capacity of the facility itself to function. Explain that to me just real quick, because I don't understand what that means. Are we anticipating being able to increase the capacity of this in the future, or?
Certainly, excellent question. We already have situations on a daily basis where we have up to 5 buses arriving simultaneously. So we are already at a point, and have been for a number of years now, where there aren't sufficient bus bays for the demands that have existed. And we don't anticipate any additional bus service in the near term to this facility. But with having over 120 buses daily and seven different bus lines utilizing the service, we do have these existing impacts already.
Okay, so the facility is now 18 years old, correct? And
Correct.
At what point did we reach 120 buses a day? Like how fast has the growth been?
We're actually down from our peak, which was close to 140 buses when I started with this program 10 years ago. So
Okay,
we were already, when this facility was constructed, we were already there.
So this facility's been overdue for this.
Correct.
Okay, and we don't anticipate it growing in the future, because my only question would be, if we okay this and we're just getting ourselves up to the point where the facility can handle current capacity, in anticipation of gas prices continue to go up, it may become more appealing for people to use public transit. Are we anticipating that need?
I certainly anticipate, under that scenario, more people riding the buses, but I don't expect more individual bus stops. The city is currently maxed out in its funding for local transit, and the air regional services by VCTC and LA County are also really running at peak operational capacity at this point in terms of the number of buses. What we would see would be a per rider increase in each bus trip.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much.
Commissioner?
Yes, sorry. One more question I should have asked before. I appreciate very much the supplemental saving three trees by the use of landscaping walls. Is there any chance at all that the largest of the trees slated for removal, tree 6, could also be saved either by landscaping walls or other mitigations?
Yeah, so tree 6 is in a different location than the rest of them. It's along the drive aisle on the way in, and that's kind of boxed in by an existing retaining wall and an oak tree on the other side of the drive aisle, which would preclude us from, expanding the drive aisle in the other direction. And then there's grades and so forth that drop off beyond it as well. So we just visited it, for the third time earlier today to look at that particular tree, because that is the largest tree at the 18-inch diameter, but we're not seeing any way to save that one at this time.
So no way to wrap the sidewalk going there?
Not with the fall off and
direction, or-
grades there that exist. The other thing we also see, that if you sometimes take the sidewalk in a unnatural direction, then people may not even choose not to use it. So then they'd be
yeah,
walking back
yeah.
into the drive aisle again. So that there's kind of a balance there that that may impact safety as well. So.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any other questions? Commissioner?
Yes, also had a question regarding lighting, especially for the crosswalks. Has there been any discussion about proper lighting, of flashing lighting for the crosswalks there?
No advanced features such as the ones you're referring to. We're talking about short distances now, especially with this new island going in, and you're no longer going to have a 50-foot crossing. It's going to be much shorter. We're talking about 20, 25 feet. So it's the distance of kind of 2 lanes. So we are adding, there is a lighting program that's part of this project, but not any sophisticated, type of crosswalk type lighting or beacons or any of that.
Thank you. And another question was regarding the MMRP, the Mitigation Monitoring Reporting Plan. Has there one been prepared already for this site, or would it be based off of the conditions that will come from tonight's hearing?
That would be based off of the conditions. Yeah.
Yeah, once it'll be based on the conditions, we'll get a mitigation plan for the tree locations that are required for the replacements. We're looking at areas along Moore Park Road as well as on Holland Drive. We'll try to get some on site where we can accommodate them, but we're still looking at locations for these trees. But the overall thought process is to keep them in the general geographic area of the transit center.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, and it's my understanding we do not have any speaker cards.
That is correct. We did receive one statement.
Yes, we have one statement card that is not in favor nor opposed, but there was a question, so I'm going to pose it to you guys to answer for me. Will you be replacing the oaks and other trees that you are removing, and if so, where?
Well, we will be replacing. We'll be mitigating the protected trees only. We will not be replacing the pepper trees or the pear trees that are being removed. And the location of the trees are still to be determined, but as I mentioned, we will be looking at locations within the area of the transit center.
So it will be somewhere on the site or around the site, is that correct?
Ideally, we'll get some on the site. We can't accommodate all of them on site. It's physically not suitable to put those trees there. But we'll be looking at areas along Holland Drive where we have irrigation and landscape area to plant these trees, as well as along Moore Park Road and other areas.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Okay, I guess we can close the public hearing. And so I will now open up the floor for a motion and or a discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to set a motion to approve special permit. Let me get the number in front of me. SUM N 2019-70266, OTP 2019-70264, LTP 2019-70326. Based on the findings and as modified in the attached staff report.
Thank you. Are there any comments on the motion, Commissioner?
Yeah, again, I want to thank staff for preparing the report. Ideally, it would be nice if everyone who wants to work in Thousand Oaks can afford to live in Thousand Oaks. So that would somewhat reduce demand for more mass transit. It would be nice if we never had to chop down oak trees, but there are public safety factors at work here, which you mentioned, and we don't live in that ideal world. We live in the real world where we have to balance these different things. And I think that to the extent possible, you've done a good job of striking that balance. So I will support this. Again, thank you for your work.
Anybody else have anything to say? Okay. Just quickly, I also want to thank you for all that you've done. I was there and took a good look at it, and I did see some safety issues that I think this will mitigate with people walking all over the place. I did see the lineup of buses. So I think this is actually going to be a nice improvement. And I appreciate that you went back to save a couple of extra trees. That was very nice. So at this point, do we want to take the vote? Can we?
Commissioner Buss?
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen?
Aye.
Commissioner Newman?
Aye.
Chair McMahon?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0, Commissioner Lenson absent.
Thank you. All right. Item number 8. No. Oh, thank you. Any aggrieved party who wishes to appeal the Planning Commission's decision may do so by filing an appeal with the Community Development Department within 10 days. And since there's nobody in the audience, well, I'm sorry, there is somebody in the audience. Thank you. But I guess this goes out to those folks watching on TV. And now we can move on to department reports, item number 8.
Thank you. We have none this evening.
And item number 9, commission comments and AB 1234 reports. Commissioner?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to say a brief word in favor of regulation. We've had so much talk recently about how onerous regulations can be, and we've had the past 2 meetings of this commission have been very unusual in that city staff has recommended denial of motions because there were multiple places where both applications were at variance with city regulations. And not only in those hearings, but other times, we've heard many times applicants will say, well, we're only here because of this one little thing where there's a place where we're out of spec in some way. And that wasn't the case in the past 2 hearings. We were here because there were a preponderance of places where the application varied from what the city regulations require, and that automatically places the hearing before this commission. And I want to thank staff for doing its job in saying we as a city elected the city council that made regulations that the city staff is implementing. And I know sometimes it can seem from the applicant's side as if they're complaining about this is too hard or this is onerous in some way, but we're just doing what city residents have asked everyone to do. And that's a good thing. The reason people live here is because we have good planning and we have good regulations and we implement those regulations. And I think that's a good thing, and I'm glad to see that process working. And with regard to these 2 previous cases, I hope they come back with better applications as a result. So my 2 cents for regulation, where it can be a good thing. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else? The staff update, item number 10. Mr. Parker, are there any other follow-up items, announcements, or upcoming issues?
Not at this time.
Is it? What about upcoming planning commission meetings?
Yeah, in terms of upcoming planning commission, our next meeting is scheduled for June 10th. We do have items prepared for that agenda, as well as the following meeting on June 24th. So we will be getting those packets out to you guys and accordingly.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I will adjourn the meeting to the next regular meeting of June 10th, 2019 at 6 p.m. Thank you, everybody.